Hello, everyone from Microsoft Development Center Serbia. I'm currently at our Belgrade office, and I'm really happy to welcome you all to the Azure Heroines event, the first event of this kind organized by Azure User Group and two of our longtime MVPs, Alexander and Vladimir. Thank you both so much for organizing this important event and for giving the women of Azure a platform to present the great technologies they are creating here at Microsoft. My name is Milica Kostić. I'm a Community Relations Manager at Microsoft Development Center Serbia, or shorter MDCS, and I will be your host today for this session. At MDCS, we have over 700 employees that are working in 8 different engineering teams, and the largest engineering team here is actually Azure Data Team. But the main reason why I'm here today is because the major part of my work is focused on local gender diversity initiative that we created in 2014 and that is now called Women Know IT. Together with our Women Know IT team, comprised of both male and female engineers and product managers, we actively work to empower women to pursue their career in tech. We organize different programs and different online and in-person events where female students can meet our colleagues, can learn about their career path and the work they're doing, and well, get inspired to join the tech industry. We also have this great Instagram and YouTube series called Her Journey. So I definitely invite you to check it out at MDC Serbia. And today, I have a great pleasure and honor to speak to someone who has inspired many, who is a great role model to women in tech, both internally at Microsoft, but also externally. Erin Chapple is a CVP of Azure Core Product and Design and has a very rich and prosperous career in tech. Erin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. And first of all, good morning and how are you?
I am fabulous, and I'm delighted to be here today. When Alexander reached out and asked me to participate, I was just thrilled at both the work that you're doing and learning more about that, and to be here today and share my story with the community.
Thank you, Erin. And I'm very curious, and I assume our audience as well, to learn more about your career journey. So you started as an intern and you're now a CVP. When did you actually realize you're passionate about technology and science and you want to pursue this your career in this direction?
But I think this is such a great question because we just know, right, that it's those experiences that you have maybe younger, right, in your life, even before you choose what you want to major in university or college, that really influence what you want to do. And so, I would say it wasn't until high school that I really got the bug, so to say, for technology and science. And it happened kind of organically, right? I was in high school and just started, right? As I started to be able to specialize in different technologies and different sciences, I had the opportunity to take physics, to take a computer science course. And my high school offered a tech program. And so I got to take drafting and I got to take electronics and build these digital dice. And it was really through that process. I had one particular teacher who had studied engineering at the university that I ended up going to, who taught physics. And he really had this mantra that science should be fun. And so I was part of the physics club there. And one of the things that we did was we would go around the province and we would compete in different physics competitions, which, doesn't like that sound cool to you? It sounds cool to me. I still want to go back and do that. And we had this one particular project that we went and competed in. It was the Ridgetown annual tractor pull. And we had to, as a team of 4, create this tractor that we built in the machine shop, and it was powered by a single elastic band. And we had to see how much it could pull over a certain distance. And so that was fun to me. I got to work with other of my classmates. There was a group project. There was collaboration. There was design. We got to see it. And I have to tell you, the night before the big competition, we were staying in the dorm at the college where this was happening, and like it just wasn't working. And haven't we all had that experience in our careers now where you come up with this brilliant design and it didn't work? And we were somewhat devastated. And so there was a prize for the best looking tractor. So we're like, we're going to put all of our energy into making this look beautiful. But it turns out, right, that we worked through the night and we tweaked it and we came together as a group, and we ended up winning. Both the best design and the greatest weight pulled over the longest distance. And so I just loved it. I loved that camaraderie and I loved solving problems together. And that was what really led me into engineering and where I am today.
That's great to hear. Thanks so much for sharing, Erin. And what happened? How did your career at Microsoft look like? You joined as an intern, and what happened next?
Well, I can say without a doubt that if you had asked me when I joined as an intern if I would be a CVP running a large product organization, my answer would be no. And so I think, first of all, I will say to those women and men out there that are thinking about your career, it's not like you have to have some master plan. I didn't have this plan that I was checking off boxes along the way. And in fact, along the way, I took different turns. And really for me, it was about doing what I like to do. I have a view that you should do what makes you happy. And if what you're doing doesn't make you happy, you should change something. But if you're doing what you're doing makes you happy, then keep doing it. Because I think oftentimes people think they should be doing something different. And that's not true to them. They think they should be changing, right? Their job or their role or their company or their industry. And that's not always the right. I think too much pressure in some sense comes from external. And we really need to be guided by who we are and what we want to do. And so for me, it was just a series of steps, right? I started as an intern, and actually, my first internship was working on Outlook, which wasn't even Outlook at the time. But I realized that as an electrical engineer and someone who was sort of more interested in those systems problems, that Outlook wasn't the right thing for me. And so I moved to work on server. And when I moved to work on server, that was something, it was a problem I loved. It was this platform that you could invest in, and it just had so much leverage with everything that you could do around it. And so I really liked working on that. And I worked on a product called the Small Business Server. And that really gave me an opportunity to get deep with customers and understand what they wanted to do. And I realized that my strength was in deeply understanding the customer and being able to translate that into what we build in the product. And so that sort of was the first initial establishment of like, what's my brand, right? As someone, what am I good at? What are the roles that I should be looking at doing? And then I let that, right? I worked on that for a number of years, and then I sort of graduated in some sense to the main Windows Server line. And so it was just a series of steps, one after another. I actually got to a point where in my career, I had just been promoted to the executive level here within Microsoft. And I was sitting down, we have career conversations with our managers periodically over the year. And he was asking me, he's like, okay, you now got promoted to the executive level. Like, you want to be a CEO one day, right? And we need to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, whoa, wait. I'm like, I just got here. I really want to enjoy what I did. And I decided to kind of invest more in what I was doing, and took a little bit maybe of my foot off the gas pedal on my career, but I paused and I enjoyed what I was doing, and that gave me this perspective to look left to right across what was happening, and that led me to make some changes in terms of the team I was on and who I was working for. And so it's not one thing, right? It's not this linear progression. It really is, how are you looking at what you want to do, what makes you happy, and how are you finding those opportunities and finding people around you who are going to support you in that journey and support you to take that next step, and to not be afraid to put it out there and say, hey, I'd like to do this. What do you think? Is that something that you think that I would be good at, and do you have an opportunity for me to move into a role that's like that? And I really feel like if you're clear on what makes you happy, and you continue to seek that out every day, um, it's almost that natural guide.
It shows. Yeah. Thank you, Erin. And when you joined, also, I listened before this, when I was preparing for this conversation. I've listened to this great podcast called Ordinarily Extraordinary: Conversations with Women in STEM. I really enjoyed it. You participated there with Jody, your mentee, and you spoke about the importance of mentorship throughout your career. Um, can you share your experience being both mentee and a mentor?
Yeah, it's so critical. It's that support, I think, that's important. Oftentimes I think we think we have to do everything on our own. At least I do. Even just a little fun story maybe on my journey to Microsoft. My mother worked at the local hospital with another woman whose daughter worked at Microsoft. And when I was in university applying to jobs, she's like, well, you should reach out and talk. And I'm like, I'm going to get there myself, Mom. Like, I don't need any help. And when I got here, right, my first internship didn't go exactly the way I had thought. And I picked up the phone and I'm like, Mom, who was that woman? Is she still here? And I reached out to her and I had lunch. And we had this great conversation. And she was the person who connected me to the next hiring manager that I had and where I started on the small business server, which turned out to be one of the best moves that I made, right, in my overall career. And so, I think we often think we have to do it by ourselves. And there is, right? So there's some confidence you need there, and it's good, right, to try, but you also need friends. And there are people who have done these things before that it's just not worth you spending the energy to try and discover what doesn't work when someone else can help you create that faster path, I would say. And so I think early on in my career, I learned, right, that importance of mentors and the importance of having not only mentors, but also sponsors, right? Mentors are people you go to for advice, but sponsors are people who are willing to make that introduction, to willing to open that door for you, to endorse what you're doing, right, and to help you, right, achieve whatever your goal is. And both of those end up being really important. And so, I think I've evolved a little bit my mentoring philosophy over the last number of years from thinking that you have a single mentor and kind of putting all of your eggs in one basket, figuratively, to really thinking you want more of a board of directors. You want to be able to, pick up and leverage people for the unique skills that they have. And so over my career, I really do feel like I have a board of directors now. And so I have, the person I go to when it's a really hard technical problem and I need architectural input and a perspective there. I have the business leader who really understands business models and what we need to do from a customer standpoint. I have the person who understands marketing and go to market, and all of these things, right, kind of come into the fabric of helping me, right, be more effective in my role. And so I think that's really important. And then, I translate that back to what is my approach to mentoring others. I really, again, feel like having that one person that is, I mean, as a mentor, that's a lot of pressure, right? If somebody comes to me and it's like, I'm the only person they're talking to in order to like solve world peace, sometimes it feels like. Um, and so in that, I have this approach of I'll talk to anybody. Right? I will, if somebody wants to talk to me about a given problem, I'll sit down and have a conversation with them. And oftentimes there I'm thinking of, well, what can I help them with? But also, who's in my network? And who can I introduce them to? And who might they benefit from having a conversation with? And so I would encourage both those that are in positions to be able to mentor, and hint, it's never too early to mentor. Even if you're just starting your career, there's someone in that high school role or someone in your broader family or circle that I'm sure would benefit from you sitting down and extending that helping hand. But whether or not you're mentoring or you're seeking to be mentored, I would encourage people to not think of mentorship as this huge, big thing, but these piecemeal conversations that really come together and create a perspective. Because, the answers are all different. There's multiple different ways to do things. And the more people you can learn from, the more people you can convey, right, your experience back to, I think the better we all end up being.
Thanks, Erin. And I often wonder how to approach someone, and it's not just, hey, can you be my mentor? What would be your advice there? How to
It's
approach mentors?
it's a little awkward, right? It's kind of like that first date, right? Where you come in and you're trying to have that. And so my encouragement would be one, you know, don't hesitate in some sense to reach out. If even as someone you're like, oh, they'll never have the time for me. I once had a person who said, well, this person would be great to mentor you, but they'll never have time for you. And I just sent a mail, and my mail was, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I'm working on. This is what I admire about what you're doing. and what I think I can learn from you. Do you have 30 minutes with me to sit down and explore if this might be a good fit? And sometimes all you need is 30 minutes with someone, right? You get that piece of nugget, and then you go off and you work it. And I with those that I mentor often say, they have homework when they leave the conversation, and then when they've done that homework and they have the next thing that they want to do, they can come back, right, and have that conversation with me. And so it doesn't have to be this, oh, I want to sign you up as my mentor and we are going to be married for the rest of our lives. No, like break it down into that small thing that you want to learn from them. Tell them why you want to learn, and make the ask. Because what's the worst they can say? No. And then you're no worse off than where you were when you started the conversation.
I fully agree, and thank you so much for sharing these great examples, Erin. I definitely feel more encouraged to approach some people. So thanks for this.
And what
Um,
just maybe one last thing on that, if they do say no, ask them, well, do you have somebody else in your network that you might have time? Do you have somebody else in your team? Do you have somebody else in your organization? Because if it really is something that they're good at, that you want to learn from them, they probably know somebody else. And so, like, I would also don't take no for an answer. Make sure you get to the place where you get that help that you need.
Fantastic. Thank you, Erin. And there are many people on an allyship journey. I mentioned in the intro that, for example, in our local Women Know IT team, it's extremely important and valuable to have male colleagues as allies. Can you share more about your experience being an ally, but also how individuals can create space for others to support allyship?
It's I want to go back to that high school experience. I had this one drafting class, and in that class, I hazard to say that the teacher was maybe not as enlightened in worldview around gender and gender equality. And I remember this one particular class where he made an offhanded comment, right, about women and how women should engage in the technology and the STEM fields. And I remember I had friends in that class, or allies, and I was the only girl in the class at the time. And one of my male friends, spoke up and kind of pushed back on the teacher, which you think about that when we're all teenagers at the time, to have the confidence as well as the awareness that that was important for him to do was pretty amazing. But it taught me early on that you need to have those friends. And when you have friends or allies, that as that transitions, from high school, there are friends. When the workplace, they're more of that allyship community. When you have those people around you and they're looking out for you and they're willing to take their whether it be the time they have, the knowledge they have, the resources they have, the power they have in a dynamic, and extend that to you, that's really allyship, right? And so, for me, allyship is simple. Given my position I have at Microsoft, given the life experiences that I have a set of resources, right? The knowledge I have in my brain, the time that I can spend with someone, the power differential that I have in a room when I walk into a meeting, the network that I have. And allyship is about being generous with those resources that you have. And it's about having the awareness to realize and read a situation and go, this person, right, has a different experience than I have. I have the ability to help them and extend, right? Whether or not it be my time, my resources, my knowledge, my power to bring them into a conversation, like extending those in that environment. And so I think it's important that we all realize, right, that whoever you are, you have some amount of resources that you have. It's important to realize what those are. And it's important to spend more time when we're in meetings, interactions, design projects, paying attention to what's happening around us and thinking about, is there someone here that I could help, right? Because they are struggling with getting their voice heard. They're struggling with getting an introduction to someone that would be beneficial to their career. They're struggling with building some skill set, right? And how can I be an ally in that situation in order to extend, right, my resources to them and help them into the conversation? Um, it can be big things, it can be small things. And again, it's not always allyship with a capital A that we're doing some big, massive. It can be really little conversations of just seeing someone not able to get their voice heard in a meeting and inviting them into that conversation.
Thank you, Erin, for sharing your story with us. And we have time for just one final question. So I'll ask one personal question. The holiday season is coming up soon. So, what are you most looking forward to in the new year?
So I'm excited about 2023 because it's been a challenging number of years for everyone around the world in varying different ways. And I feel like there are a lot of things that I have not been able to do or experiences. Had so many people within Microsoft start during the pandemic. I think you started during the pandemic, and we haven't had a chance to meet in person. I have team members I haven't been able to meet in person. And so for me, like, I think we're approaching, right, this sense of starting to integrate what we've learned over the last 2 years into what the new normal will be ahead. But there are a moment of firsts, right? I just recently had my first return to in-person conference with Microsoft Ignite, and it was great to be back in connection with customers and partners and have that energy. I had one of my first events with the team. And so there are all these firsts. I'm excited to take my first international business trip again, my first international family vacation. And so I do think there's a lot of energy, right, going into 2023, and figuring out how do we reconnect and connect in new ways, now that we have this more hybrid world that we're living in, and that energizes me, and I'm looking forward to potentially being there with you in person in the future.
Yes, you're definitely invited to join us here in Belgrade. Well, thank you again, Erin, for sharing your story, for joining us today. I wish you a great rest of the day. To those of you watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you feel inspired by Erin's journey. I certainly am. And I encourage you to stay for the upcoming sessions, learn from women of Azure that are creating technologies of the future. Thank you again, and regards from Belgrade.